Hello, this is Christian. In this video, I'm going to talk about Node.js and what it is and how you can use it to build applications in Windows. So here is the Node.js website, and as you can see, the latest version as of to date is version 12.3.1, and so you can install either one of these versions, and that should be fine for now. But as you can see here, Node.js, or sometimes we just call it Node, is a JavaScript runtime. Okay, so it's an environment that runs basically just JavaScript. And as we know that initially from the get-go, JavaScript was created as a language to work primarily on the front end. That means run on the browsers only, right, on the user's browsers. And so it was not meant to be used on the server side at all until this really, smart guy came and he said, hey, you know what? We could actually use JavaScript to run on the server side too. And so back in around 2009, exactly 10 years ago, a graduate student by the name of Ryan Dahl, D-A-H-L, I think, he actually, created Node.js to allow JavaScript to be used in the back end on the server side as a server side language. And so now it's no longer true that JavaScript is only on the front end. Okay, so that was Node.js is for. It's a really robust runtime environment that is used to build web applications. And so with Node.js, you can use a single language, which is JavaScript now, to create web applications, interact with the servers, with databases, and so on. So, okay, so if you are interested in finding out what the history of Node.js, I highly encourage you to go and Google it and read its history. But for now, I'm going to go into the documentations and just going to go over a few things with you. If you go here, this is the documentations for either two of those versions. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to go right to we'll just go with the version 10, and it should still be very much similar. So here, you can read more about it. So Node.js was actually written by, again, Ryan using C and C++, so mainly in C. And so right here, you have a lot of stuff here. One thing that we'll be looking at the most is, well, the console is another object or a function that we're using quite a lot to write data to the console, like in Java. Or yeah, the console meaning the screen. I mean, not the windows, but just the command line, command prompt. And then this console here works very similar to the console that you use to write JavaScript on the DOM or on the window browser, a browser window. It is not the same function, although it does work exactly like that in many ways. And then down here, another area I want you to look at is the HTTP. This is a package that actually allows us to build web applications. So you will probably use this to create a web server, right? So if you want to build web pages, you need to use this package to create a server, and then from there on you can have access to the HTTP protocols, all the HTTP verbs, the put, the get, post, and delete, and many others to interact with the server and the web page with the web browser. So we'll be using that eventually later on. And one of the most important ones is this thing called modules. Okay, so modules is pretty much the heart of Node. Is it because every JavaScript file in Node.js is considered a module. It is a module. Okay, so and then the module is wrapped by a very special function called a module wrapper function. Okay, this wrapper function here has about these parameters here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parameters in the function head. So you can access these 4 parameters and use them inside your module. And you will be using these quite extensively, especially the Yeah, mostly 5 of these. The most one may be the export module and require. And so to look at this wrapper, it will look something like this. It's a function. It's a, as you can see, this function starts here, ends right here, but it's wrapped inside a parentheses. So this is something called an iffy, right? Iffy function, or something which stands for the immediate invoking function. Okay. Um, immediate invoking function expression. I think that's what it stands for. Okay, so you see that inside the function you have the exports, require, module, the underscore underscore file name, the underscore underscore dir name for directory name. So these 5 parameters will be very useful inside your module. And inside here, it says the module code actually lives in here. This is where you write all your code. Okay. This function is not visible. You won't see it. You can't see it because this function, you can think of this function as the actual JavaScript file you'll be writing inside the code. So your code lives only in here. You don't have access to this function. You can't do anything about it because this is being called from elsewhere. It's a self-invoking function. Okay, so inside here then you have access to these parameters, and we'll go over these in a bit. Okay, so that is the module wrapper function, and there is another group of objects and the globals object. So these, as you can see, there's a lot of them, and you see again here we see the dir name, the file name, console is the global object, exports in the global itself, and then the module and then required. These again you saw earlier are inside the module wrapper. Okay, so these are global objects. So again, these are the 5 parameters inside that module. Okay, so let me go back to that function again, and so I want to copy this one here. For now, I'm going to show you how that works inside a Node application. So to work with Node, just make sure again you install Node. And I'm going to go into the window here and create on my desktop a new folder. And I'm just going to call it Node Applications. Okay, or no projects, I guess. No applications, I guess that's fine. I'll use this as my root directory for my sample. And then the easiest way is to, a couple of ways to do it. One way is if you have it configured correctly inside your Visual Studio Code, you can open this folder and then go into the command prompt, click here, type in cmd, and hit enter. It loads your command prompt. Inside here, you can just type in code with a dot, code space dot. If you hit enter, it's going to load Visual Studio Code with the current folder no applications in here as a default folder, right? So you can do all your work within here. So that's how you do, right? One way you can add folders. Another way is once you open Node in here, Visual Studio Code, you can also add a folder by, right click and then just say add folder to workspace. Or if there's no workspace here yet, you can go to File, Open Folder, and find the folder open here, and so on. Another way is you could just open that IDE, and I'm going to close this and go back to the window on the menu here on the desktop, and drag the folder and just let it go here. And it's going to load that window, open it for us. Okay, so I want to use this one here. Okay, so here this is a Node application folder, and inside here you will be writing your code and creating JavaScripts in here and so on. So for example, if I go ahead and create a new file, call it app.js. Okay, so this file is a module. Okay, every JavaScript file and Node.js is a module. A module is wrapped by this function I just showed you earlier, right? This is the wrapper function. And so you won't see this, of course. It's not shown here, but I'm just put it here so you can see. And so when you write your code later on, so hopefully they'll make sense. Why I'm using exports? Why do you use require? Where do these functions come from? Okay, because it's inside this wrapper function here. Okay, so all your code will be in here, right? So think about this for now, and I'm going to comment this out so we kind of have an idea of what that is. So your script will go in here. Okay, it's in here. All your code, it lives inside this space here. Okay, because right now this file is inside, this space here is inside this function. So when you write code, it's inside here. So you're not actually accessing this code directly. You are actually invoking this data in here through this wrapper function. You know, probably doesn't make sense much, but that's how Node works. Okay, so every JS file will have this same exact structure. Okay, and so because of this, you have the exports and require so on. You can then return or export a series of data here to another module, and then from a different module, you can just include that inside that module by calling this require function or require parameter. Okay, so inside here, then your code will be just like regular JavaScript. All JavaScript code is, again, it's based on JavaScript, so you can write your code in here just like you would do in any regular JavaScript file. All right, before I do anything here, though, I want to just save this for now, and I'm going to go into the command window. Let me close this. So here it says to go to the terminal. You just press the Control plus the backtick, or go to View and then click Terminal, or here on the space here, right click and then open a terminal. Either one of these will take you to a terminal. And once you're here, you will have access to the command prompt. It looks very similar to the DOS command prompt. Visual Studio Code and some or most IDEs have their own terminal built into it, which is really nice. Not all of them do, but most of the advanced IDEs do have them. And so that means you don't have to go back and forth between the two screens, right? You can just access directly here. And here you have a PowerShell as the type of terminal. If you configure it correctly, or differently, you can choose a different type of command line here interface. So yours might say CMD for the Windows command interface, but I'm using PowerShell, which is also, it's like an advanced feature of the command line. But so you can have multiple terminals here, same as I've opened it, open different windows. So this is the first terminal. I can add another one by clicking the plus sign here. Now you see that I have second terminal here. The drop down shows me which one I have, because maybe here I could do some code here. And the other one I could do a different kind of code, right? This is very useful when you have an application that's running. Later on, you'll see that when you run a no application, you activate it and it's running, and you don't want to cancel that server, but you still want to do some coding in the command line. So you can't access it. You can't do that all at once, because you're using the same terminal. So you can add a different terminal, and then from there you can go over here and then write some code. That's why it's there. And if you no longer need it, just click the trash can here and remove that, and then you're back to your just one. Okay, so here on the command line, I can make sure I have Node. You can just do that and type Node and then space -v. It tells you version. I'm using version 8 still. Actually, I should upgrade that, but my machine's still using version 8, so that's okay. Okay, so then when you run Node, because Node.js is a binary, I mean it's an executable file. If you just type in Node and if you just hit enter, you see that you enter a space here with a angle bracket over here. That means you're in the Node interface, or the it's like an editor that actually allows you to write code. And this is something called the REPL. I'm not sure you pronounce this, but maybe REPL. I'm not sure you say it. But the REPL stands for the, I think there is a documentation for that as well. I forgot what it stands for. It's like I think repeat eval and then print loop or something like that. No, I mean repeat. I mean read, REPL, read eval print loop. Okay, and this is an interface that allows you to write code. So for example, I can just write expressions here. It's just like regular JavaScript expression. 2 plus 2 is 4, right? It gives the output here. If you are familiar with Python, this looks very similar to the Python interface. So you can just do something like that. You can do, you can write something through the console by using the console command, console log, hi. It prints the message here. Or you can also write functions if you want. You can say a function fx. You can take a variable, and then here you can put return n times n, like something like that, right? And then so that function is there. I can call fx, pass in 2, I get 4, right? So you can use that as well. And if you want to, there's a certain function. One of these is called the editor mode. If you go directly here, instead of doing one line at a time like I did up there, you can go into editor mode, and then here you can write some scripts. So I can do something like I can write a function if I want to. I can say function, another function maybe, f of y, and then this will return n plus n, for example. And then because I can write multiple lines, right? I keep going until I'm finished with this. Then I can press the Control D to close this editor. So what I'm doing now is similar to I would open this file and then write inside the file instead. But if you didn't have that, then this is how you can actually do here. So I have a function here. I can say once I get that, I can do a console log, the f of y, pass in 24, right? And then as you can see, there's no output because I haven't run the program yet. So let's say I'm done. So I'm going to press Control D. You can see that it runs it. Once you do that, it will run the code, and it will run the function. It built the function, create that function, and it will log it to the console. You see 48 here. So it's the same as if I go and type in f of y and then 24. Okay. And then these, again, this is just some code, right? And usually, once you do this, if I click Control C to cancel it out, or if I exit out, it will lose all this information. So you can also save this if you want to another file. So you can do like days.save, and I want to save into test.js. So now it saves what you just typed to a file called test.js. If I open this file, you'll see that it has the code that I wrote earlier, right? I start with 2 plus 2, add a console, and then so on. So now this is a module. So I can save this file, and because this is just an expression, nothing will run on the console. Nothing, you don't see that there. But these are commands that you can print to the console. So if I go back to the command line here, and then I can exit the REPL interface by typing .exit. Now I'm back inside the just regular terminal command. Let me clear the screen by typing CLS. And if I want to run this Node application module called test, then I just issue the command node and then test. And you can put the JS if you want to. You don't have to, but you just type node test and it should know it. If I hit enter, you will see that it runs through my lines, my code here. 2 plus 2, nothing shows up in the console because I'm not doing any output. But the console log hi prints this message to the console, so we see hi here. And then I have a function f of x here, and then I activate that. But since I'm not outputting that to the console, I don't see the result. I then have a second function. Then I log that to the console, so I see the result 48 here. Again, this is not outputted, so you don't see that. So this is how you run a Node application, right? Right. So you type this in the JS module, and you run it by typing node and then the file name. Similar to if you were to just go node and then go into the interface, and you type this command directly to the interface here. Okay. So we're not going to do that using the interface to write your code. So normally you will go into your file here and write all your code here, and then you go back to the console and run it like I do here. Okay, so I'm going to close this for now and then go back to the app. As you can see back in here, very similar, right? And that's how you do it, right? I can go here and write a function, write anything I want here, and go to the console and run that from there. So I can say again, I can have a function here called fruits, or get fruits, and I can take an index, and inside this function I might have an array. We call it var fruits array. It has apple, banana, cherry, and then we'll put another one here for dates. Okay, so that's an array, and based on this index, I can return the fruits of that index. Okay, so that function is there, and then I can call it down here. I can say get fruits of, that's 2, right? That should give me cherry. That's my expectation. So if I save this file, go to my terminal, and then if I run this test, not test, but the app, so node app, I will see, oh, because I didn't output it to the console. I got that right, but I didn't show it. So you would go here, I should say console log, and then get 2, call the function. Again, save that, and then go down here and run it again. Just press the up arrow key, and then you see that it prints the word cherry. Okay, so that's how you run Node application. And if you are, if you're here, then yeah, so that's basically it. So now the next thing you want to do is, how do you pass this function to another module so I can use it? Okay, so I'm gonna go to my test file. Well, maybe not test. Let's give it a more meaningful name. Let's say that I'm going to create another file here, and I'll call it, I'll just call it fruit.js. Okay, and I'm gonna copy this function here. I'm going to cut that function and paste it in here. Okay, so I save that, and so now it's in a separate module, but I'm calling that function from within the app.js file. So if I just to run this file like I did earlier, it's not going to work this time because it does not know where this function get fruits come from. So if I run it, you see that it has an error, and the error says get fruits is not defined. Okay, so because it will not include it inside this module. Now to make this work, then you have to include this module or import this module fruits to this file. And to do that, you have to do 2 things. One, if you want to export this function out so that other modules can use it, you have to use one of these. You have to use the exports or the module.exports, because the exports here is a special parameter that is just a reference it's referencing the same module object here. It's kind of interesting. So I can go here and say, okay, if I want to expose this function so other module can use it, then right down here I can use the exports, and then the dot, and then I can use the dot notation to attach a function. In this case, I can call it the same name, get fruits, if I want to. Get fruits, assign that property get fruits to the function called get fruits. Okay, so let's see if this works. If I save this file, and so I'm exporting the get fruits function, as attribute or a property of the exports object. Okay, so now once I do this, then I'm gonna go over here to the app. To use it, I need to import it by using the require command. So I would say require, and then here is the directory or the URL to the file that contains all the code, which is the module itself. And it's going to be inside the current directory, and the file name is called fruits. Now you don't have to put .js here if you can. You don't want to, you don't need to, because Node will actually look for it. It will look for the .js. If there's no .js, it will look for the .node and then other files as well. But default is a .js, so you don't have to put a .js here. Node will pick it up. It's also important to put the / in front. This is a notation for the current directory. If you don't do that, if you leave it out, what Node will do is that Node will look into the actual root directory of the Node library and look for a library or a module called fruits, and it may not find it because it's possibly it could not be there, right? So make sure that you prefix it with the / for the current directory. If you had the fruits inside a different directory, then you put that directory here. Let's just say if I put that inside a directory called functions, then I say, function and / fruits. Okay, so that's important. And then now I need to access a function, object, to access this fruits here. So export is needed to be imported here and assigned to a variable called, maybe I just call it f. Okay, and then I'll use the constant to assign that variable. So this is the object, because now it receives the object of this, right? This is the object, and the properties are going to receive this object here, as in the f here. So as you can see, if I do it correctly, if I save it, and if I go down here, if I type the f, if I put the dot, you see that has access to the property of getFruits. This getFruits here is this getFruits, not this one here. Okay, so if it's confusing, I can do like f x, so we know that it's f of x. Okay, go back here again. If I type in here the dot, you see that it has access to f of x function. So it's a property of that function called getFruits. Right, so now instead of console getFruits here, I would say f, which is this f here, dot f of x. Okay, so f of x here, because it points to the function called getFruits, and it takes one parameter, right? So I pass in the parameter 2, and then I can save that and go back to the console again, clear my screen, and if I go and type in no app, you see that now I have access to the function, and I got cherry. If I put 3 here, I should get a different fruit called dates. Okay, so that's how you export a function from a file, a module, to another module so they can use it. Again, this is the actual function name here. This is just a property. You can call it whatever you want. Okay, and I'm using the exports. That's this exports here. And then I'm going to attach it to this exports object. And so you can expose it doing that way. I can also do another one, say I can exports dot, maybe I just call it A. Doesn't matter, right? And equals anything. It could be another object, could be a function, could be anything. It could just be a string. And just put something like message equals hello node. Something like that. So I save that, go over here, because f receives all these exports objects. You can see that if I go here and type in console log f dot, you can see the message here, right? It's available because I have access to both of those. So if I'm going to print a message, now I have the message printed after the word dates. So here is dates and the message. So I can export not just functions, but any variable, anything I want. Okay, and you can export as many properties as you want. You just have to get an object. This object will receive all these exports, and then you access each by using the dot notation. Okay, that's one way. If you want to access a certain function or property, then instead of doing this, you can say, okay, I want to do something like constant, maybe, message equal f of message, right? You can do that, and then here just type in, message, right? So if I save that, and then I can go down here and type in here, I get the same message here. Okay, so that makes it a little bit shorter because I don't use a dot notation. I can use it here. Or you can say, okay, I want to do something. I mean, that's one way. Another way is I can do this. Well, let me copy this part here and put it here. And then instead of the whole object, I just get the message. You could do that too, right? It's the same thing. And I get the same message. So if I go here again, I change it to a different message, put a couple exclamation marks just to make sure it works, save that, right? And then go here again, run. You see that it loads the same function or property. So this is a very specific property. This one here receives all of them. So if I type in MSG dot, you won't see those because it's the actual parameter already, the actual object property. But the F receives all the properties that's associated with the exports. Okay, so if you want to be very specific, you can do that. Okay. Again, this is not even part of Node. This is just a regular JavaScript stuff. Okay, how you can export and import modules. Now another one is something very useful is if you go here to your module and let's just say that I have two functions. Okay, fruits here I have maybe get places. Oh, I should have named differently, but well, anyway, it's okay. So I can say places. Come on, places, and then here I can have, places. It could have been objects, but for simplicity, we use arrays. Places could be like, New York. Just put let's type in here, New York. Washington, D.C., and then Miami. Okay, let's just say I have those three places. And then again, if you don't export it, you're not going to see it. Okay, so if I go over here, if I type in F, you see that you don't see that function because it's not available. I didn't export it. To make it work, you have to export that down here as well. So I can go down here again and type another exports here. Dot maybe have like places, the same name, and it's going to be places. Okay, so now if I save it, I should have access to both functions, the fx and the places, right? Okay, so again, f have access to all the properties. This is very specific. If I want to get the places function, I can do exactly the same thing as I do here. I can say places equals this, and then the places function or property. So now I can just type console places and give the index of 1, and then I should have that new place, the place display down here. Oops. And then you see that oops, I probably did something incorrect. What happened? Places, export places. Did I do it wrong? Should say get places, sorry. Get places. So this, again, this is the actual function name. This is just a property, so you can call whatever you want. This is the function name. Okay, so go back here again, clear my screen, and then throw return fruits. Oh, okay, more errors. I should be places. One more time. Okay, so here it is. We got it, Washington DC, because index of 1 gives you that. All right, so this is very specific to a very specific function or any property. This is the whole object. Okay, and so as you can see here, one way to do this also, instead of saying f is this and then places that, you can also do something like this, constant, and you put the object in here equals require, and then the fruits here. Okay, so now instead of using this method, I can put f for a very specific function. Well, we'll keep this as it was before. I can use the function for so like all three here, right? I could just remove this for now and see if this works. No, I'll leave this as, I'm sorry. I'm gonna get the two functions, the get fruits and get places. So you can put that here, get fruits and get places. And then down here, instead of saying places, I can say get places. So as you can see, I'm calling the actual function here, and instead of using the f dot something, so get fruits. Okay, I'm going to change this to a 1, and this is a 2. So if I save that and run my code, get fruits, I did it incorrectly. Get fruits, get places. Let's see, get fruits here. Oh, I didn't use the correct property. It actually is f of x and place it. Sorry. So it should say f of x and then places. So it was correct before. So here will be, instead of get fruit, I use f of x, and then this is the places. Again, these will still be the actual properties that you export out. So I'm exporting f of x, places, and message. I could put all three in here if I want. So I could put all three here. It doesn't matter the order. Message can also go here. So you put that inside the pair of curly braces. These are the objects, right? And then these are the actual properties you export them out. So make sure you match the exactly same name, not the actual function, but here. So which is why it's typical to use the same variable here for the properties and in the functions, which is I made that mistake you saw earlier. But again, this is optional. So now I can call that directly here without using the dot notation. Have it done and use the f only. I have to use f dot f of x. But now I'm getting the actual function names here and then use it right away here. So if I go down here and clear my screen, let's see if this works now. And so you can see that I get the banana, the message, which is from this line 4, but places is actually from this constant. Okay, so this part here, this is what's called a destructuring. You're actually destructuring an object. Okay, or sometimes you call this unpacking the object. And this is very common for arrays and objects. And this is how it works. Okay, so you can put your, so if my object called export has three properties, f of x, message, and places, right? To get these attributes or these properties, I have to do something like this. Message equals that. So in other words, I have to say message equals f dot f of x, like I showed you earlier. And then you can assign to different variables. So instead of doing that, you can do this by destructuring your object, and then you just put your variable names here, the exact variable name you use inside your properties, and then after that you can access it right away. So this is just a common feature in JavaScript. Okay, so that's one way to export variables properties. Now another way to do is you can do it this way as well. So instead of doing this way, I'm going to show you one more, and then we'll stop here. So if I have two functions, instead of doing this way, I can use the module export. So let me turn this off. I can do a module export equals, here I can pass in an object of these. So I can do something similar. I can do f of x is assigned to with the function called getFruits, right? And then message is msg assigned with the message. I didn't have that message here. Just say with another message called hello node. And then I have the third property called places is assigned with the getPlaces function. This is, you can do it this way too, but if you do this way, you have to call the module.export. If you just do this, this may not work. I think you have to use the dot notation here. So now if I export this out, then assign to a variable, then I can access the key here. The key here, these are the keys, and these are the values, right? So if I save this, I go over here. Now this this won't work anymore. Well, let's see. Let's see what happens if I save this and go back to the command prompt and run it again. Okay, so I guess it does still work, right? This still works because again, I'm just extracting the object. I'm extracting this out, so it's the same thing. Okay, so this works fine. This undefined here, it didn't work because I'm trying to get a message and there's no message attached to any property here. Okay, had I done the MSG, then that would have worked. If I say, MSG here, then I think that should be fine. If I go down here, so you can see that the message is there again, right? So this is just another way how to export. You can put into a list here in object. This is quite common actually. So I don't have to type 3, 4, 5 to 10 lines. I just put my objects in here, my properties in here, and then I can access it here. You can pick and choose which one I want to use if I've used this way, or you can still do it this way and exactly the same as you did before. And the F, if I do this way, I'm receiving the entire object, so I can still access these data by using like f dot, you can see f of x message in places. So I can again here I get the same function by using the dot notation because I'm assigned to an object. So just different ways how to export and then import these properties to your files. All right, I hope this is enough at least to get you going. And so just remember that each JS file is a module within itself. Okay, it's a module, and if you want to share these functions here with other modules, you have to export them out. Okay, you can do it in multiple ways using these methods I show you here. And you don't have to export everything because maybe some of these functions or variables may be private to only within this module. So anything that is not exported are private to this module. Okay, so I hope this is helpful. And again, if you have any questions, please let me know. Post a message here in the video and comment, and I'll respond. Thanks so much.